All right, I'm gonna go through a couple things, some high level stuff, overall, but this again, just I know some of you guys are real estate related, so I'm gonna just kind of go through this. And it's macro, but this is stuff that you kind of have to dial into. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. This is just something that stuff is really important. So the first thing is there's 4 main ways to scale a business. All right. And so any business that you set up, I'm telling you, you're not even gonna believe you have access to this call for this much information I'm getting ready to share with you, but there's 4 ways to grow your business. I've talked about this a good bit, but once we get to dial into this, and y'all are welcome to ask any questions, but ultimately you can run a corporate model, you can run a licensed model, I can't spell, and you can do a franchise model, which you would think I know this, but I wrote it down. And then you have a JV model, all right? And so even with the licensing, a lot of times that's software. So you just think of it as software. You probably can't see that real well, but anyway, just write it down. This is more for me than it is for y'all. So with the corporate model, you're gonna take on the model. It's gonna have all the expenses of the office and the overhead to start one up. So whether that's furniture, build out, rent expenses, all of those are going to be on you. So anytime you're running any business, now again, this is any business. It doesn't have to even be the business you're in. I just want you thinking of the business that you're running. So if you're running a corporate model, you're going to have that setup of the infrastructure that's there. Now again, this is a service-based type business. This is not like a product-based business. And in that case, a lot of times you may have one location to do that. You could sell product and have corporate stores as well, but overall, a lot of people do that online. So if you're running this, you have the corporate store, you're going to add these in. Now, the flip side of that, the advantage to this, when you're running corporate, you're going to add managers or people that are in charge of each of those locations. And so that's going to be the key factor in this. So now you're going to have all the overhead, and you're going to still have to have a leader in place to do this, all right? And so once you do this, you can run this. Now you're going to replicate that leader over and over and over again when you're doing this. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to figure out the other stuff we're going to go into. So this is kind of back all the way into something. Once you're doing that, you're going to have to figure out the profit per location so that every leader for every location is worth that. You're also going to have to know how much money is it going to cost you to start one. So every new corporate location has a cost. So if you're going to scale, you got to start and then a profit. And that's kind of the flow you're going to work through on every corporate location. So again, the downside is it's going to take a lot more money to start up than it will to do a license or a franchise or potentially a JV. All right. So each of these this is not a science to showing you the perfect model. This is just explaining to you how you can do this. Right. So the next thing is licensing. And so licensing, they're using your name, they're using your brand, they're using maybe your software. Now, in that case, you have no control. Okay. So you have no control. And that is the big downside on that one, right? So this one over here, your control is your issue. And this one here, the startup cost is the issue. But the flip side is they can pay you $1,000 a month, $500 a month, whatever it is. You're not having to drive anything. Now, if you offer them a software or something like that, you may have some things that are friction to adding them on when you're doing that. But on the flip side of it is you can't have control, because once you have control, then you're dropping down and you're now a franchise. Now, a franchise meets a certain amount of rules. You have to have a certain amount. There's a certain amount of money up front, and there's a certain amount of control, and they use your name. That is called a franchise, right? So there's the 3 rules to a franchise. When you're following those, you are a franchise. So doesn't mean you can't call it a license and do it. That would just be illegal, right? And so once you're following these and you have a control, then you are becoming a franchise, all right? And so the third one is the joint venture. The joint venture means you could be running a corporate store and then joint venture, and where you're splitting costs and you're doing it as a business. Now, again, you're now just trading off when you're going to go scale a business. In the joint venture, you're making a trade. And the trade in that is that you're trading the leader here. If the profit here is so good, all right, let's just say in your model, your profit was $20,000 a month, all right? You could license to somebody, and now they get the $20K a month, and they pay you $1,000 a month, all right? So if it was good, why would you do that? All right, that's the question you're gonna have to answer. The next part is when you're doing a franchise, if the franchise is this way, you may end up getting a royalty based on growth, all right? And so they get $20,000 and you get $3,000, all right? So maybe that's there because you're showing them, but you're now having more control and you're helping them get to 20,000. So in ideal circumstances, you'd have a higher percentage, get success. So in a franchise model, you have control, so they should have more success than they do in a licensing where you're just giving them the name, because they may not make it to 20. But if the product's so good in what they're offering and they can get to 20, you may want to keep the corporate model, because then you can decide how much you want to pay the leader. Does that make sense? So in this case, you may pay the leader $5K because the systems are there, the process is there, and now you're keeping $15K. So you can start to see the corporate model allows you to keep $15K for finding the right leader and finding success in the model. The $1K you're only getting if you license it, but you have less work you're going to do, and now they're keeping 20. In this one, you may make less, but you should have more as you grow locations that find success. So now you're finding that you're making 3,000 times more locations instead of 1,000, and then you're helping them because you have control. Or the other side of it is you take one corporate location, run it, controlling it, managing it, and you keep growing your offices that way, and now your profit is even higher. So you just have to decide which of those you want to do. Joining down the JV is the same as the top model for the most part, but it's a new entity, right? So it's going to be a new entity. You have to make sure you don't break franchise law, right? Because you can end up with breaking franchise law because you're using the same name, you have controls, etc. But now that same 20K is now split. And again, we're making up 20K as a number. It could be whatever the number is that it makes. But now you're splitting that. And so if your partners, they're getting 10K, sorry. They're getting 10K, and you're getting 10K. So now you got a 10K, a 3K, a 1K, and a 15K. That's giving you the idea of how this works. Now, you may make 15K, but you had to put up more money. You may have put up less money to no money, but you're only getting 1,000. And now you're doing the franchise side of it. Now, if it made $2,000, this one all of a sudden makes more sense. If this one, it makes $2,000, then this one's going to make even less. And if it made $2,000, then that's going to take you a longer time to get your money back. And if they made $2,000, the JV may not want to do that business because they can't live off $1,000. Y'all follow all that? It's a lot, right? No questions, thoughts, concerns? Too high level? Does this apply to anybody? No, agrees. No, exactly.
Me, applies to me because I've done several franchise locations. But I could understand why people would get a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, and so this isn't like a training of how to do this, right? This is just explaining it. So you have a concept of what to do, right? And so, so you can understand with what we do in our coaching style is that we offer it where we will go in and look at a business to look at it to buy it. We'll look at it, take one of those models to grow it and build it, or we'll look at it and say, hey, how can we build this to sell it, right? And so that's essentially what we set up with that. But to get in any of those four, you're still going to need a couple other pieces of the pie. All right. And so what you're going to have to be able to do is you're going to have to be able to figure out your CAC, okay? Your cost of acquisition cost, or your customer acquisition cost, right? And so, for example, if you went in and you had to spend 20 grand to get 40 customers, okay, then you have a $500 cost of a customer, all right? And so the important part of doing that is you have to look at what you're doing that is driving this. Most people aren't managing or watching this number whatsoever. So the biggest problem is they don't have a scalable business, because if you don't have this, then you can't go to location number one, corporate, franchise, license, or JV, because you don't have a way to add on more customers. But if you had a recipe to add on more customers and knew exactly what it was going to cost you for every customer, then you'd be really, really running fast and you'd be really excited. However, you also have to keep in part B of that, which is the LTV, the lifetime value of the customer. To have the LTV of the customer, you have to know what they're worth. So you need someone to be worth $600 plus to be worth it in the lifetime value. Now, if that $600 is over the course of 3 years, then that could be a problem, right? Now, if that lifetime value was now over the course of 30 days, then you're in even better shape. If you got to a place where you have a $500 cost of acquisition of a customer and it was worth $100,000, then you're going to end up printing money, right? And so that's what you're looking at when you're trying to build out a model, because you need to know your customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value of the customer. I'm going to pause for a second. Is there any questions y'all have as this pertains to your business? Are you tracking this? Are you doing this? Anything of that sort? No questions. Y'all have your customer acquisition cost? You know what it's going to take to get them. You know your lifetime value. Does anybody in here know their customer acquisition cost or the lifetime value of their customer value right now? Well, this is why this is an important call, right? Because the key to this is to do this. And so, and most of you guys, we've included you on this call. We put this on here free. Your job will be to do this, right? So I gave you the first page. The first page is, hey, that's macro level. Well, we've got a problem because we're not usually even thinking or trying to figure that out. And I realized I gave you an option without giving you the solution, right? And I know that because every business is different. So this is an overview to give you a problem that has to be solved. This is a problem that can be solved. Now, sometimes we can't always get there, right? And so again, this is why I've set up coaching for what we've done, because I help figure out the models. That's what we do with our blueprint. We also have this where we set this up where we can do this and offer this to help you figure out the lifetime value and the customer acquisition costs, right? So some people are coming in, they're brand new to a business, so they don't know these things. This is why coaching is so valuable, because you can go 3 years and not know these numbers. You can go in and never run this, because people will tell me, hey, I'm growing a business and I'm just going to grow it organically. And I'm saying, well, you can't figure that out if you're growing organically. You darn sure can't go open a second corporate office if you can't grow it organically. You see the problem? So that's part of what we have to do. The next item that I would talk about, am I going too fast? I'm going to blast through all this stuff. So the next one is the cost of goods sold. Oops. And I was going to do this on a P&L, but I figured it's just easier to do it this way. I know I'm blocking your view, so I apologize for that. And I know you'd probably rather I take this down and stop looking at me and look outside. But the cost of goods sold is really important. And I go through this, especially in the real estate industry. A lot of people don't realize that this is something that you have to be able to figure out quickly. And so when you're doing that, the cost of goods sold is now basically your commission expense less commission income minus your commission expense. So if it was $10,000 and then you paid out $7,000, then commission income $10K, commission expense is $7K, you made $3K. Your commission expense of $7K is your cost of goods sold. That's what it took to perform the transaction. Now, from there, you may add in other marketing things, or you may add in a salesperson or leads or operation, because if it's costing you to run your location and it costs you $3,000 a month and you have 3 transactions, then it's costing you another $1,000 a month for cost of goods sold just to run the operation, right? And so that's what you have to be able to figure out. A lot of people miss that in their operating costs. So they pay for a 10,000 square foot office and they sell 10 transactions. Well, now it's costing you $1,000 a transaction. So you have to review those financials pretty regularly. And so that's one of the things you'll have to do. So you got your cost of goods sold, you got your lifetime value, and you've got your customer acquisition cost. These are all 3 really important factors to dial into. Now, what I find most of the time is a guy's a really good plumber. He does a good job. He's a plumber. And when he's out there, he's doing plumbing, he knows he's the best out there. When he's on the job, he can solve any problem and he's going to do it. And so he's the best technician that there is, right? And if you've read E-Myth Revisited, you're going to know that number. Or know that term. So now when you're looking back at this, you're going to say, well, but he's not a good business person, right? You may have the best lawyer or the best doctor, but they can't figure out how to run these numbers when they're doing it. Now, if they're just printing money, they don't have to figure out their cost of goods sold, right? Because they just know customer comes in, we're helping them, and we're making money. But what happens is that they don't know the lifetime value. Every customer that the plumber helps can refer other people, or they may come back and use them again. Every person that they fail with, they're going to lose. Every time that they run an ad and they generate a new customer that buys a product, they spend $1,000 to get a plumbing issue fixed, and it costs them $500 a customer. It's good. If they could drive this number down by paying attention to economics, then you can get lower cost per customer, which creates even more margin, right? And if you have resale of things, you can drive up your lifetime value. So if you drive up the lifetime value and drive down your cost of customer acquisitions, now you can create a model for licensing the corporate, the franchise, or the joint venture, because now you'll figure out what that is. And the better you do at this, then the better you will be at picking one of those other models. This is what makes what we do so interesting, because this is how we dissect kind of everything that goes on. Questions on any of that? All right. The next one. I like this little whiteboard thing. I think it gives a better visual aspect than me just saying these things and spelling it out there. All right. So now you've run the customer acquisition cost. You figured out how to run corporate license franchising. You know your lifetime value. You know your cost of goods sold. So you've worked through all of those pieces. Well, now what you're going to do is you're going to get to a place where you're going to grow it and you're going to just kind of keep doing it. You're going to run it on autopilot. You're going to infuse capital. Most people don't realize is every business is about infusing capital. If you're not putting any money in to get new customers, well, that's hiring a recruiter, hiring a salesperson, running ads. All of those things are again going to go in here. Then you're going to stay on the same line ongoing until you can go in there and increase that. Now, if you can run $100 and get a bunch of them, then you could put $1,000 in and get even more, right? And so that's kind of what you're looking at. You will run into problems where you run $100 and you're fine. You can do the sales. You run $1,000 and all of a sudden you got more business than you can handle, and now you're losing an efficiency. All right. So now what happens is you're going to build this with the idea of kind of the end in mind. All right. And so what I mean by that is anything that we're going to do, we want to kind of ask a couple questions. Like, I don't even care that corporate model is making that amount of money. Once I have 5 offices making $20,000 a month, I'm thinking of who wants to buy what I built with $20,000 a month. Who wants to buy my customer acquisition costs? Who wants to buy my lifetime value of these customers, right? And so you create all of this stuff when you're looking at this, when you're building it. And I know, all of you that are on here, I know you personally, so which means I know you're in different business models. And so you're having to run this through the filter of what you're looking at. But I will tell you, the filter we're going to run through is somebody on the other side. Because as I mentioned, when we're doing this, we're looking at partnering with people to grow their business, going in and buying their businesses, or then saying, does this pass the test that we can sell it? Because you get an exit, right? And so every business that has these different numbers is going to have a different exit. You're not trying to get $20,000 a month. That's not going to get you where you want. What you're trying to do is get $20,000 a month times 5 locations or 5 of those so you can sell those for a certain amount of money and then speed up the $20,000 a month, because then they're going to give you a check for that amount of money. But they're going to look for a couple of things. They're going to look for a lot of things, but I'm going to give you a couple of them that you're going to want to do, all right? It must run without you. All right. This is the number one problem most people are going to find in any business, is that they're not filling the lanes of all the people so they can get a business that runs without them. All right. So they don't build it right. They don't build it because it's built all around them and they're the only one that can do it well. So then they don't build it that way. All right. The next one is they're going to do this where the second thing is you need consistent revenue. All right. So how do we spell that? Oh, I was just trying to abbreviate it. Consistent revenue. So you have to be able to see the revenue coming in on a monthly basis and that it's going up, right? They're going to look for this. If that consistent revenue is going down, then that becomes a problem because it's up and down. It's inconsistent. They're looking for something that's consistent. So if you know your cost of acquisition cost and then you know what your lifetime value is, then you can go in and figure out, whether it's consistent or not and what you built. The third thing they want to see is a sales funnel. All right. And I kind of did that one backwards, but you need a sales funnel to generate the consistency. But if you build a sales funnel, then you can generate new customers in on that customer acquisition. We know the lifetime value of them. And now we know the cost of goods sold, what it's going to take to pay an employee for marketing and the salesperson to get that all the way through that funnel. And so now you're running all that through. They want to see a funnel that essentially they can put money in and runs all the way through in location 1 or location 100. Right. So that's part of what you're going to do. All right. Then the next one is they're going to want to see clean financials. All right. A lot of people, you got your hotel stay on there because it saves you on taxes. You've got, you've got your dog on payroll. And so, those kind of things are messing you up on clean financials. It may save you in taxes, but it's not necessarily going to build you to the exit. So that's why a lot of people go in and they get this stuff done and audited and looked at by us to figure out how do we clean that up, because we want to do that. And we'll also do something that's called add backs. All right. So then we'll go in and figure out what was a one-time thing you did. All right, you paid for dry cleaning one time because you had to get all your clothes done. I'm just making that up. But then you're going to say, well, that's not going to be an ongoing expense for the business. So we can take that back out because the revenue came in from the cost of acquisition customer, lifetime value, all of that was in there. And now we're going to go through and we're going to back out anything that's in there. All right. So, and then the last two things are your cost of acquisition and your lifetime value. So they're going to look at all of these things in your business. So I'm only telling you that I've shown you all these things because you want to prove this with what you're doing. Now, some of you guys are saying, I'm not on here. I didn't come on here to learn how to sell a business. I don't want to sell a business. That's not what I'm looking to do. But I will ask you back the question a separate way is, then what are you doing? What are you building for? Why are you doing this? Is it because you're passionate about it? You know, some people love the spa, so they open up a spa so they can go to the spa. They will quickly not love the spa, right? Some people love the NFL, so they're going to go into the NFL so they can get a job in the NFL, and they quickly don't like that they have to go to practice every day. They're getting hit with pads on, and it's painful. So all of that doesn't matter how great whatever it is you're doing. Eventually, you're not going to love it the way that you do when you went into it. Ideally, you will, and you should love it. But what you will love more is building it in this way and building it because someone else is going to love it. And then you'll move to a new period of life when you're growing and doing your business. So, so that is kind of that. So any questions on any of that? Too much, too fast? I told you I was going to rapid fire through this stuff. So I will tell you, I'm going to put some stuff in the link. If this is something you want to go through to look at for any of your business, inside of the link, we're going to add the 15-minute Calendly so we can go through any of your business stuff if you want to review it and see if this is something you want to do. We also have in there, we do coaching. You can do 2 calls for $1,000. That'll be inside of the link. And then that's kind of a monthly thing. Some of you guys are franchisees, so that doesn't really apply to you guys. And then the $2,000 is set up for monthly coaching if you want to do 4 calls, and that's how we model stuff out. That's how we go through the customer acquisition cost, the lifetime value, as well as sellability and scaling. So all of that is what we do inside of the coaching and consulting that we do. And there's also a link. I've done something called the money game because sometimes people are just, this isn't for them, but the money game is really set up so you can understand the basis of all of this stuff is set up in the money game to drive your economics and get your money growing and working for you.
Hey, Ryan, Chris Taylor here.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chris Taylor.
I appreciate you inviting me. I just picked up my daughter from preschool, but very relevant. I think I shared with you a couple weeks ago for our smoothie business, we were looking to expand and we were able to acquire another business, but they had a guaranteed or recurring revenue of $3,000 a month. And so we just got the paperwork yesterday. We were able to acquire that for $1,000. $10,000 was the purchase price, but we were able to pay $1,000 a month because they were distressed over 10 months. So going in, our cost is zero outside of cost of goods sold, which is for us fruits and vegetables. And from day one, we're able to lock in that $3,500 a month plus the upside. So this is very helpful as we're trying to kind of look at the operational cost and how to really take advantage of this opportunity without putting a lot of money out.
Well, you're bringing up a really good point, which is what you did is you changed in customer acquisition cost from the person who's buying a smoothie to the person who runs a smoothie shop. Your customer, you're not trying to get someone to buy a smoothie anymore. You're trying to buy somebody's shop who sells to those customers. You follow that?
Yes, sir.
So you're moving up a level and doing that. And that's why I was explaining the corporate model, the franchise model, the licensing model, and the JV model. You kind of twisted a piece of this that I didn't really add into it. Was if you're running a corporate model, you can go pick up everyone else's customers really quickly. Right. And so you're going to go pick them up and figure out what those revenues are worth. And as you did, and then saying, why have centralized cost? So you're not having to add new cost in to go take on their revenue, which makes you that margin.
Okay. That makes sense because right? there's upside there, but they're serving 50 a day, but their client that's paying them wants them to serve 100, but they didn't have the structure in place. So that was what we looked at as the upside, is how do we get from that 40 to 100? And there will be costs for us, but this was good today. So it helps us look at scaling those costs to what's it going to cost us to get to 100 of those people a day versus just being satisfied with the 40 that they have right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because you bought an opportunity to kind of drive that up. And so then that becomes the work to go in and do it. Once you acquire that, you go in and do the work that they're not doing. You take this information we're talking about now and go apply it. And so a lot of this, like I said, this is somewhat free information that we're offering, but it's how to go do that, and to go do that is the part of what we should be building and what we should be doing.
That appreciate you, because I don't want to be in the smoothie store for the rest of my life. So I like how you frame this today. What's the exit? So we gotta grow this revenue.
The faster you get those $3,000 accounts, how do you get 3 of those a month, 5 of those a month, 10 of those a month? Instead of trying to go do the 50 smoothies, 50 people to do 50 smoothies, you're trying to go get it to where do you get another 50 smoothies, and then get that 50 to 100 and do that over and over and over again. The faster you can do it, and the faster you'll be able to exit.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you being on here.
Hey, Ryan, quick question.
Yeah.
Hey, man, so I'm just starting the franchise. In your opinion, building from the inside out, taking care of my own books. I know there's QuickBooks. I know there's a spreadsheet that you gave me a spreadsheet, profit, things like that. I think QuickBooks might be tracking your expenses and profit back, right? Rather than presently. Is that correct? And what should I use to help me visually keep track of that? How often should I look at that?
You want to keep track of, you're saying what should you use to keep track of your QuickBooks?
No, just of my general profit and loss for the franchise. I know you provided QuickBooks.
QuickBooks is something that you're definitely going to want to have. To do that.
I have QuickBooks.
Yeah,
I know there was also a spreadsheet that you sent me as well.
Yeah, so you have that because then you can track your profit per month, right? So once you start tracking your profit per month, then you can go from there, and then looking at each department inside of the business, whether that's your technology fees, your transaction fees, your commissions, those are all departments in there. So you're driving those up, and then your expenses should be somewhat fixed, so you can add in the more revenues without adding in the expenses. And that's the chase that you're doing. And then as you do that, you should start thinking bigger, right? And so instead of getting one agent to 1 transactions, how do you get 1 agent to 10 transactions? How do you get 10 transactions coming in? What are each of those volume amounts worth? So you're making, bigger moves.
Mm-hmm. Reviewing that weekly?
You won't necessarily, because the interesting part with the franchise side of it is you have your set expenses of what it costs for the month, and then you're trying to stuff as many transactions in there as possible. So it's almost on a monthly basis. You're trying to close as many deals as you can possibly to be above that commission, that hard cost. So if your operating costs are $5,000, it's how many transactions at what split do you need to be above that $5,000, and then how many agents does it take to get there, right? And so that's the drive that you're doing. How do you add in and keep adding on to that without increasing that $5,000 of expense? So that's kind of the game you're playing. And now at some point, you may do that rapidly. You may apply money to it, which means hiring a recruiter or paying money for leads or, whatever that is. Then that's where you have to figure out your customer acquisition cost to get a new lead or a new deal worth $3,000 or $2,000 or whatever your cost of goods sold. You take your cost of goods sold so you know what your profit is per deal. And then now you want to get 100 of those. If you were making $1,000 a deal and you knew that was the number you were making, whether you had 3 or 5, and you knew your expenses were $5,000, what strategy would you go through to get to 100? Because then you'd have $100,000 a month coming in, and it would be laser being focused on doing that. Now, that's one strategy. Another strategy could be, well, I'm going to share it. So instead, I'm going to give Shayla $3,000 or $300 of every $1,000 I bring in, but she's going to go get me 10, and Jonathan's going to go get me 10. And so now I know I'm only making 700 in margin, but I have somebody else giving them an opportunity to make money as well, which goes back to what I'm talking about: corporate model, franchise model, JV models.
Got it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Jonathan, anything we can help you with?
I'll get with you. I'm possibly looking at buying some franchise locations down around where you are. So the whole thing with reviewing figures, I'll get with you guys on.
I like it.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's everything I got buttoned up for today. If y'all don't have any questions, let me know. We put the links in there if you want the calendar link to schedule something, or if y'all want to join on. We'll talk soon. Later, guys.
Thanks for doing this, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, take care.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.